Hello, and welcome to Astrology Rocks. This program will be broken up into a few different parts. The first part, we will be doing the rock painting. Before we do that, we need to find out what our sun, moon, and rising signs are. So I'll do a little screen share option there, and then from there we'll be able to get to painting. After we do that, then I will dive in a little bit deeper to explain to you what the sun, moon, and rising signs mean within the astrological context. So I will put some timestamps down below in the description box. So if you wanted to skip straight ahead to what the meanings are, please feel free to do that. If you wanted to just do the rocks, that'll be toward the beginning. So yeah, that's that. So I'm going to freeze myself real quick right here because I forgot to introduce myself. So if you don't know who I am Morgan, usually in the Launchpad. And this part, you might be like, what on earth is she talking about? We have no idea. But I am a triple Sagittarius. So my sun, moon, and rising are all in Sagittarius. We'll learn more about what that means exactly later on in the project. Alrighty, so at this point we are going to need to put in our birth information, so our birth date, including the year. If you have it, you'll also want to do the location and time of your birth. The easiest way to go about this is to use a website. That's just the truth of it. So what we've got here is astro.com. So if you're following my mouse here, astro.com, or you can type this into Google and it'll take you right there. And the other way that you can go about this is getting your hands on an astrology book, and at the back of them will be ephemerides or charts for the different celestial bodies. So in astrology, the sun and moon are considered planets, just for simplicity's sake. And then there are some major asteroids that are taken into account within a birth chart as well. So what we'll do, since we won't necessarily have access to ephemerides right away, if you want to wait so that your kind of, stuff is protected so that you don't have to enter anything into a website like this, then, of course, wait for a book to come in. We have some at the library. If we don't have them in the consortium, which is unlikely, then you can always do an interlibrary loan. So what we'll do is we have this nice little option over here. We don't have to create a login. We can do create a horoscope immediately as a guest user. So we're going to go ahead and click on that. I'm going to accept that. And then we can put in our information, right? So making somebody up. Let's do Mary Bowberry. Let's see. Born the 15th of May, 1973. And for whatever reason, I know this because she told me, right? So she was born at 8:37. All right. So again, as I said, you'll need to know the time. You'll want to do it within a half hour to an hour of your actual birth. That will give you the most accurate placements, right? So we have the US birth town. Let's make something up. I don't really know. There's got to be Lincoln, like in every state, right? Yeah. Lincoln, Alabama. Here we go. Talladega County. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and hit continue. When we do that, The first option here is the one that we're going to choose. It's chart drawing ascendant, quick access to your chart and calculations. But something that I wanted to bring attention to is that this site itself actually has a host of ephemerides. So I'm going to go ahead and open that in another tab, and we can look at that afterward. So for here, the chart drawing, we're just going to go ahead and click on it. Hopefully the mouse is showing up for you. Okay, so Mary Bowberry. Woohoo, we've got her chart. She's got a lot of aspects. Wow, she's spread out all over the place. Well, I've never seen a chart like that. That's interesting. She's got like something in almost every single house. Interesting. Okay, so the important part of this, we're not going to focus on Mary Bowberry because this is not a chart reading program. We just want our sun, moon, and rising signs, right? So sun is up here in this chart up here. You can see the sun is in 25 degrees of Taurus. So that's Taurus. You can see that over here. Let's find Taurus is over here. That's the symbol for the sun. It looks like a circle with a smaller circle inside of it. So Taurus sun. Moon is in Scorpio. So that's actually going to be directly across from Taurus. They are in opposition. They are opposite each other on the big pie in the sky. So, of course, the symbol for the moon looks like the moon, right? It looks like a crescent moon. So they've got a Taurus sun, a Scorpio moon, and then their ascendant, which you can find either here on the side, AC for ascendant, or over here in this chart, AC for ascendant. Ascendant and rising are interchangeable in astrology. So you can use either one, they mean the same thing. What it looks like Mary has is a Sagittarius rising. Oh, she's like me. So 8 degrees of Sagittarius. We're not really going to worry about the degrees, it doesn't actually matter. So if Mary were in this program, she would need to know that she's got a Taurus sun, a Scorpio moon, and a Sagittarius rising. Awesome. So now she has the information that she needs to look at the sheets that we provided in the kits and decide whether or not she wants to get those signs on the rocks that we provided. So you can save this for later use. If you click on it, it just opens in another window. And then from here, you can save image as, copy it, whatever. If you just keep the tab open, it will expire, so you'll want to keep that in mind. So if you want to keep it, make sure that you save it right away. I mean, if you remember your information, then it doesn't really matter because you can just put it in again. So the second part that we wanted to go over is, remember, I was really excited to see that there was the create an ephemeris chart selection. So ephemerides, cool. So you can choose to do it for asteroids for a year, for 10 years, for a year, dwarf planets, yada, yada, yada. I'm just going to do ephemeris for a year. Actually, I'm just going to keep it the original. Yeah, let's do 2020. Who cares? Okay, so when you do it this way, it's 7 pages long, it looks like. Tropical zodiac, yep, that's what we're doing here. This site that we're using, I trust quite a bit. I found it to be the most accurate site that I have encountered when it comes to astrology. And that's just to say that when you compare different things within your chart or different celestial events, you know, you kind of want the information to all line up, right? So if something is telling you one thing and then another site is giving you something else, okay, which one is true? You don't really have to worry about that with this one because this one seems to always have the most accurate information. You can look at some of the other sites. There are plenty, and I have some listed up here, but we're gonna look down here, and this is what an ephemeris looks like. It's got the different celestial bodies, the month here at the top and the year, and then the days of the month, right? And then it tells you what, with the symbols that it uses, what sign was in, what planet was it in what sign at a given time. So you'll see a lot of these, there's not really much changes. That's because they're so far away, so it takes longer for them to, make a full revolution around us, or just in orbit. Not just us, the world doesn't revolve around us. But this is what you would essentially be looking at if you were to choose to go the ephemerides way of doing it. If this were, a class where we were learning how to draw a, where is it? Draw a, oh, Mary Bowberry. There it is. A birth chart. Then yes, we would absolutely want that. We would kind of need that. They're generally very long, pages and pages and pages. Okay. Some of the books that I'll show you later do have the tables at the end for a certain amount of years, and then it moves on. Another thing that I wanted to point out was that there are other sites that have ephemerides on them. And you can generally trust these ones. Again, I said the astro.com is the one that I trust the most. But these ones, I mean, I would look at both of them next to each other and decide. I don't think there's anybody like maliciously going out and on purpose putting different information. They could just be following a different form of astrology, because with this site, what this one does is we're using Western or tropical astrology. This site uses Vedic astrology and Eastern astrology as well. So, and I think more than that too. So that's something to take into account. There's a lot of good information on here, and you can tell it takes a lot of people to do it. So we could always look at the authors and stuff. But yeah, feel free to look this way, especially if you feel kind of like antsy and uncomfortable with the idea of putting your information into like a calculator on some site that you don't really know that well. Then please be my guest. It may take a little bit longer, but please be my guest and, look up the ephemeris for the year that you were born, and then you'll be able to get all of that information as well. So when you see it starts in 1, so that's Scorpio, right? And then it goes all the way down here until, what is that? The 8th of January, and then it moved into, what is this? Venus. Venus moved into Sagittarius, right? So then it continues on. So that's how you would read that essentially, is it goes from this sign and then it moves into the sign that it shows you. And then you have to kind of go over to the side to see which day it was. And you'd be able to get most of your planets that way. I'm not sure that you'd be able to determine your rising sign. Actually, you would, because shoot, I'd have to find out how to do it, because there is your rising sign is the sign that the rising sun was in when it was coming up over the horizon from the point of your birth, from where you were on the planet, right? So it always follows the same, the hours of the day follow that. So there it would be a way to do it. I'd have to find another resource, and maybe I'll be able to put that on the bibliography that I'll make and put in the description box. Okay. So one last thing here is, if this is all sounding very foreign to you and you are interested to learn a little bit more but not fully dive into like academic mode, this is a good place to start, is astrostyle.com. They are twins that are astrologers, and they're very knowledgeable. They have, I think I found they have, I don't know, horoscopes are kind of goofy. We're made up of so many parts, as you can see from Mary Bowberry's. Like, there are so many moving parts here that it's kind of hard to say that, oh, that horoscope described me specifically. Like, that's totally what went on this month. So I don't know about that, but with this, they have once you get to their website, they have a Learn tab here. I'm already on it, so just gonna reload. But from here, they have a ton of information regarding the planets, the moons, how to read charts, retrogrades, when everybody's going, oh my God, Mercury's gone retrograde, what are we gonna do? You're gonna be fine. It happens 3 times a year. It's not a big deal. Just don't make any rash decisions. So it's got, a ton of information about that stuff, as well as some other stuff, which is kind of cool. But what's nice about this one is that it kind of eases you in. When you click on, so let's see, I'm clicking on Mercury signs. How you communicate, learn, and get things done. That's generally what Mercury represents. So when you look into this, it gives you some information on what Mercury represents, and then what it means when it's in a certain sign or a certain house, which is determined by this. So the ascendant marks the first house, and then counterclockwise, second, third, fourth, fifth. And you can see it by the numbers on the inside here. But that's what they go over. And you can see it's just a couple paragraphs. So it's not like you're totally getting into it. You're not having to read 5 million pages about it. You're just kind of dipping your toe in. And that's a good way to do it. I trust what Astro Style shares. So definitely take a peek if you're, curious, but not wanting to go and get, a 300-page book. All right. So that is how we determined our sun, moon, and rising sign, right? See, so sun, moon, and ascendant or rising. And then we'll know what to put on our rocks if we choose to do that. If you don't want to do that, then, don't do that. It's your rock now. It's your paint now. You do what you want. Okay, talk to you in a minute. Now that we know more or less how to obtain the information regarding what our sun, moon, and rising signs are, we'll have a better idea, if you plan to do your own, what symbols or constellations you might want to do. So right now, essentially what you're looking at is your kit minus the flamingo tablecloth. So what came in your kit was 3 different stones, right? One of them should be bigger than the other 2. 3 pieces of paper, one that has the constellations and the names of them. Then one will have, I did double in case people, for whatever reason, I kind of thought that people might want to do the simplistic ones. So if you want to do that, I gave you 2 in case you wanted to trace it or something. But that's what they are. And these are all really the same. You'll see they're just kind of in different orders. These 2 in the constellation are in the order of the zodiac. This one is not. This is actually more in the order of our calendar year, starting with Capricorn. So what you'll see though is that while these are kind of simplistic and more modern, these ones are more kind of calligraphy looking, and then these ones are kind of more, I don't know, like more serifs in them or something. But it's totally up to you what you want to use. Of course, you could always use the constellation as well. I think that for this one, I'm gonna do, oh, look at this one's got craters. That's kind of cool. Okay, so I'm gonna use this one, and I think I'm just gonna do the simple let's do the real simple looking ones. Actually, I kind of like this one. I'm going to do either this one or this one. So, as we've said, I am very Sagittarius, but I have a lot of Capricorn in my chart. So, part of that is why I would go toward a Capricorn stone. Partly of which, if you look into the North Node and South Node in your chart, that'll kind of give you some info too. But anyway, what I'm going to do, don't mind this, this is just my stand for the camera that I'm using. Very top heavy, so it's kind of in the way, but I'm just going to move this stuff around. And the cat has joined us. Okay, what I wanted to mention is that in addition to, okay, so we got the rocks, we got the paper, you have 6 different paints to choose from, right? And then you got 3 different little pieces tucked together with this painter's tape, which is non-tacky. That's why we use the painter's tape. And, it matched the painting, the brushes, painting brushes. Okay, so one is going to be this toothpick, which would be great for if you wanted to do stars in the background, or if you even wanted to dip it in, you know, the paint and then kind of outline it, you can totally do that. So that's a cool tool to have if you want it. My cat's here, making me real nervous with this tripod. But okay, the other 2 brushes that you got, one is a detail brush. So this one is good for doing really little detailed work, which is great if you wanted to, you know, write the name of the sign or do the, you know, parts of the constellation before you connect the lines. And then this one's going to be a flat brush, which is good for, I think what we'll be doing is kind of like the background. Obviously, they'll do thicker strokes like this with other colors. What I also, I'm sorry, this cat is being a little in my way, if you know what I mean. Cat owners will know what I mean. Can you please be careful, Gus? Thank you. Okay, so in addition to this stuff that came in the kit, I actually grabbed a cup of water. Obviously, if you got some kind of plastic, you know, kid's cup or something that you don't mind getting dirty, use that. I don't have children and I don't have those cups. I got enough of them from my childhood. There you go. It's good. Okay. So, we are cat free. This is good. So, what I was saying is that I got enough of those silly plastic cups in my childhood, so I don't have any right now, but this would be a great reason to have one. So in addition to water, which is of course going to help us soften our brushes for first use and then clean them before we move on to the next color, I also got some, and you'll see it here, I brought paper towel, which is going to be good for drying off our brushes. And then, or, you know, if we get too much paint on it or something, you can always, you know, get the excess off here. We're not going to go crazy with the whipping like Bob Ross would. Oh, Bob Ross, great guy. Okay, so the last thing that I brought with me was just a little piece of parchment paper. The reason I did this, and you can do this with aluminum foil, with if you are a painter or an enthusiast or just whatever, you have a scrap of plastic that you kind of plan to throw out or something. It can be anything, really. You can use it as a palette to kind of combine some of the colors if you wanted to. So if I wanted to have kind of like a shimmery blue, you know, I can totally do that by grabbing some paint from each one, mixing them together, and then I'll be able to use that on my rock, which is what I plan to do. So the colors that you got were pink, silver, which is metallic. We've got a blue, a teal, a white, and a purple. These colors I chose mostly because we're doing stuff having to do with, astrology and constellations, and a lot of the time those kind of universe or galaxy looking images that they do utilize kind of these colors, especially these ones here. Those are popular with the purple. So we're gonna try to do that. So like I said, I think I'm going to use, which one do I want to do? I'm gonna do Capricorn. I just don't know which one I'm gonna do yet. Okay, I think I'm gonna do this one here, which is similar to the calligraphy one. No big deal. Okay, so I'm gonna put it to the side over here where I can see it. It'll be my inspo. Okay, and then we're gonna open up some of these. These are kind of dangling, so remove any jewelry that you do not want to get paint on. Got some rings, let's do that too. Pay money for these, I'm about to ruin them. Okay, so I've got, oh look, there's the cap. So a lot of them probably came with the cap for the detail one so that it wouldn't get damaged. We don't need that anymore. Okay, so let's see. We are gonna get our brushes wet, which will soften them up a bit. Okay, so this is nice and wet. We can get some of the excess water off if we want to. And what am I gonna do? I'm gonna play with the blues and silvers and teals. That's what I'm gonna do. How do these suckers open? Let's see. Oh man, you might need an adult to open these up. Jeez. Okay, so another reason that these are super useful is to open these. Who would have thought? I'm lucky like that. It's all of the Sagittarius. All of that Jupiter energy. Okay, come on, dude. There we are. And that one is very full, it looks like. So I'm gonna open these three for now. Make sure when you start to work, as I have this kind of, I'm sure you've seen it before at the library, this tablecloth that you're going to want to put something down so as you don't ruin, so as to not ruin your table. So even if it's just a big piece of paper, a lot of paper towels, newspaper would be great. So if you had a lot of leftover newspaper, go for it. Okay. So what I'm gonna do, and you know what I'll do on the screen, I'm going to put some images, and I'll give credit wherever it's available, of different styles of this kind of project, because this is not an original project. This has been done a million times over. But what is cool is that everybody kind of puts their own spin on it. So while some will just kind of keep it simple, others will use, like a lot of dots or something like that and make it kind of like circular, or kind of even kind of like a mandala, which is really cool. So there's no right or wrong way to do this. And I'm not kidding or exaggerating when I say that. Okay, I wanted to try the thing where we go this, and then I'm gonna grab some of this, and then we're gonna mix. What's gonna happen? It's gonna give me a kind of metallic blue. Maybe, maybe not. Yep. Gave me a kind of sparkly blue. Can't tell if you see it. If you can see it. Let's see what it looks like on the rock. Oh, it's lighter. Okay. And what you might find that you have to do is let the background dry a bit before you start on the next bit. This makes sense, right? Okay, so this kind of like wave thing that I'm doing, I'm going to be doing with some of the other colors too, to try to get that kind of galaxy look to it. We'll see if it works. May not. Okay. So I'll speed this up so that you guys don't have to watch this entire creative project, or process, I should say. Just do what you feel like. You've got 3 stones, so no big if you don't like the first one. Alrighty, so I have this guy drying over here. You can see from where you are, it may or may not look very galaxy-like. I'm gonna venture to say it doesn't, but that's okay. I brought up some images of, you know, what galaxies kind of look like from our perspective, with different colors added in, and use that as inspiration for it. So I'll offer some of that, or I'll show some of that to you all as well when I get to that point of video editing. For now though, I just wanted to show you that I have gone on to the second rock, which I'm going to do something totally different on this one. This one I'm going to kind of keep like that, I think. It just kind of looks like a mix of colors, which is fine. It could look a little bit more galaxy-ish, but I would need darker colors. So if I, you know, wanted to add some black to some blue, if you even have that at home, you could do that, of course. I was mixing the blue and purple quite a bit, and then some silver in there too. So purple and pink might look quite nice together, especially with a little blue in there. So really just play around with it, because you can see these are full to the rim. So I think you'll have plenty for all 3 rocks. And if you don't like what you did, I think I've probably said this 3 times already. If you don't like what you have, just wait for it to dry, and then you can either paint over it or paint on the other side. Who cares, right? So I'm gonna let these ones dry, and then after this I'll probably start doing like an inner circle, and then I'll probably start doing the dots around it to kind of show you what that looks like. And then in the center is where I would put either the constellation if I wanted to do that way. This one looks like it's the right shape for it, because it's kind of longer, whereas this one definitely looks like it's more symbol, like it could fit a symbol, because it's just like a regular little circle. So just wanted to show you what it looks like in between. You can see my little dirty water. I've been using a lot of blues. No problem with me. That's my favorite color. Okay, I'll see you guys in a little bit. Alright, so I've brought these to work with me now. You can see they've dried completely. They have a little a few scuffs on each of them because of the way that I carried them. So that's all on me, but that's okay. So we've got a purple one. You can see I'm continuing here with the one that was supposed to look like a galaxy. Just use your imagination, no big deal. I'm working on the symbol, the kind of simplified symbol for Capricorn, and that will need to be fixed. I'm no artist. You'll see I point out here where I need to go back and cover it in blue so that I can fix the sign, but that's okay. Still looks kind of cute. And at this point here, I am actually going to give it a go, one of the constellations. So I'm doing Sagittarius, of course. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to use the toothpick that we were given, and then you can use whatever color you want, whatever, it's up to you. Your rock. I'm doing white. So it doesn't quite look like it on screen, but this is more of a purple blue. This is when I mix together the purple and the blue together. So the one there on the right, the smaller stone, that's just the true blue right out of the little pot that we gave you. The one on this big rock is kind of a mix of two. But I'm just going slowly. You can see I'm pointing at each individual star. And then once we get all of the main stars, I will just connect them by doing, I think in the image they did kind of like a dotted line. You could do that. You could choose to go over it with like a silver and do a solid line. We'll see what happens with them. For now, I've just done the little dotted lines in between them. This one I'm actually quite pleased with. It came out looking very nice, much nicer than the other one did, better than I expected. But the constellations I think are a good way to go because it's just dots. You don't have to worry about, how to hold or use the paintbrush the right way, that kind of thing. You're just using a toothpick. So came out quite nice. I'm happy with it. All right, with that big sucker out of the way, we're gonna do the last one here. This one is actually perfect. It's a longer rock, so I figured that I would do the kind of simple arrow, which is the symbol for Sagittarius, the centaur, the archer. So what I'm doing here is just making the arrow. Practice makes perfect. I don't practice, so I am imperfect. This is okay. I am okay with it. So at some point in here, I go back to that, what was supposed to be Galaxy Capricorn one, and try to fix the Capricorn symbol with the toothpick. It seemed to work okay. Not too bad. So that's good. And then we go back to the arrow, just the plain arrow, give it a border, give it some stars, and voila, they are done for now. I might go back and change some of these. I think I wanted to do something else with the constellation, so we'll see what I can come up with there too. All right, so the diving in portion of this program where we talk about sun, moon, and rising signs. So a few things that I wanted us to note before we jump right in is that there are, as I've mentioned before in the video by this point, that there are a few different types. More than a few, there's a lot of different types of astrology. The one that we will be using is Western or tropical astrology, and that's the one that we are most familiar with 12 signs, Aries, with the dates, blah, 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 blah. So, other than that, really well-known ones and well-used ones are Vedic astrology, which is used throughout India. From what I've heard, it's a big part of some families' cultures, and matchmakers will use astrology It's slightly different from Western astrology, of course, but use it in matchmaking and all of that as well. And even when, a child is born, an astrologer will be sought out to properly name the child given the celestial events that are happening at the time. So there are a lot of people that, use astrology for a plethora of reasons. For us, we don't really see it as that important. And I think with the Vedic astrology and those that have used it in that way, it is definitely more tied into the spirituality and the religious aspect, whereas that's really not so within our culture, most American culture. So something to keep in mind. Another thing to keep in mind is that astrology is considered a pseudoscience, so not a real science. And it's fair. I consider it, a study, a discipline, whatever. But something to note too is that, just because we can't explain it through the scientific method doesn't mean that it has no value, right? So there were, I don't even know how long, psychology itself was considered a pseudoscience. And now many people would bristle at that. Psychologists, even when I was in school, professors would talk about it and kind of bristle at that. And it's considered a soft science and that kind of thing. And so I think it's kind of, the reason I bring that up is because it's interesting, first of all, to think about it that way, but also because we need to consider things from, the wider perspective. So just because we don't understand it, just because science cannot explain it, doesn't make it, void of value. They have tried to, study it in the past, and in different studies or experiments, the first time around it would be a go. It'd be like, oh, wow, that actually was a thing. But then when they try to recreate that, it wouldn't turn out. So they couldn't call it, a science. It was not provable by science. So something to consider. This is not a hard and fast. Yes, when you're drawing up charts and stuff like that, you're 100% using geometry. Like, there's no getting around that. It's all about degrees and lines and doing all that stuff. So that's something to consider. But we're doing it for fun, just like most of our programs here at the library, or kind of here at the library. I should be in outer space right now. They're for fun and educational purposes only. So, obviously you wouldn't want to make huge life decisions on this. And if you check out some of the books, they might say differently. But based on, this program specifically, I'm going to ask that you don't make major life decisions based on what I say. Okay? So, something else. I did want to say, with the psychology being called a pseudoscience for so long, there are actually a lot throughout history. There have been a lot of psychologists and people within the psychology community who are actually big fans, or have been big fans of Western astrology. And a lot of that comes from not necessarily, the placement of the planets at a given time, but because it relies quite heavily on archetypes, and that's something that is pretty popular, pretty common within psychology itself. When we go through all of those different tests where we do like the MBTI, different personality tests, it's kind of like that, where we come up with different archetypes to try to kind of get a better understanding of people in general. And that's what I think astrology can be really good at, is it helps to understand what people's drives might be. And I say might be because when you can know that someone has their sun, moon, and rising all in Leo, right? That's my nephew. But that doesn't mean that he's going to be like the ultimate Leo of all of the Leos. He's not going to, it's just him having those placements means that he may be more likely to have XYZ as something that drives him. Something to do with his ego might be something that he struggles with throughout his life. That kind of thing. So no hard and fast rules right away. Certainly not when you're first just dipping your toe into it. And then the next thing that I wanted to mention before we really get into it is the origins. This is really interesting to me because the first time that astrology kind of showed up on the radar was 30,000 BCE. That's over 32,000 years ago. That is a very long time ago. Very long time ago. So the one that we are going to be talking about as Western tropical astrology is closer to that of the ones made by the Babylonians, so Mesopotamia, so one of the first, or if not the first, civilizations, and that was around 2000 BCE. So a little over 4,000 years ago. I think that's right. But there were also different astrological systems in place within different Hindu communities, Chinese, the Mayans even. So, I mean, astrology's been around a long, long, long time. And that shouldn't be a surprise. We've got all sorts of light pollution now, but they didn't way back when, so they could see a lot more than what we can see. So let's go ahead and dive in. Just have something here in front of me so that I don't totally forget what I'm talking about. And give me a thumbs up down below if you can guess which one this is. I've said it a million times, but I'm going to give you that pass. Let me take a sip. Okay. So, your sun sign. This is the sign that when someone comes up to you at a party and says, "Hey, I'm a Leo, what's your sign?" Or says something like that, like, "What's your sign?" They're talking about your sun sign. And the sun sign is where the sun was during a given year. Or during the year, because, every year it's going to be kind of the same loop, right? We have the same seasons. So it's approximately 4 weeks. It's roughly around where we mark our months, but a little bit off. So generally a sign will start, the 22nd or something of one month and go until the 19th or 20th of the next month. So kind of crosses into two. But that's what they're talking about. That's what they mean when they say your sign. What is your sign? Which one? Because I've got a lot of them. That should be the answer, but you can generally go with your sun sign. And that's the one that we'll most often know off the top of our heads. I was born during this season. I'm a this. So I was born December 17th. I am a Sagittarius. Close to when Capricorn season started, but not quite. So, if anyone tries to tell you that cusps are a thing, they're not. This is where astrology gets a little funky. It's just that it has to do with degrees. each sign, it's like a wheel, like pie in the sky, right? Each sign gets 30 degrees. You can't be 30 degrees of one and 1 degree of the other. You cannot. That's what a cusp would be. You cannot be two signs at once. It's not possible. It's by degree. So depending on what degree you are, that's what your sign is. So cusps do not exist. Unless, I mean, kind of seems harsh when I say it like that. But when you're talking about cusps in a kind of wider perspective, then you can, yeah, that makes sense, because, you know, the sun is close to, like, for my birthday, for instance, the 17th of December. It's the end of December-ish. So it's getting close to Capricorn season, right? And so if I'm even closer to Capricorn season, let's say my birthday is on the 19th or the 20th of December, a lot of the other planets, so Venus and Mercury, are always traveling quite closely to the sun. So they're always going to be within a certain set of degrees of the sun. So when you say cusp in that regard, it can be okay, because, you know, your Venus was kind of on the cusp there. You are still only one Venus sign. You can still only have one, but it makes more sense that way, because while you are, let's say you're a Capricorn, your Venus is in Sagittarius, and your Mercury just hit Capricorn. So, okay, there, it's kind of cuspy, because, you know, you got a little bit of both. And that's going to happen in most people's charts. Mercury and Venus will be either in the same sign or within 2 degrees of the sun. Oh, misspoke. So within 2 signs of the sun is what I meant to say. My bad. What the sun sign really means is it's kind of like your ego. It's the strongest ego investment. It's your self-esteem, your creative expression, your basic urges, and your identity. That's what the sun is. So somebody had put it in one of these books. I'll show you. One of them's Llewellyn's Complete Book of Astrology. The other is the only astrology book that you'll ever need. Get as many books as you can. Don't let a book tell you how many books you should have. But somebody in one of these two said something about how somebody had explained it as the provided role, the role that you're given in a play, as an analogy, right? So the world, life is a play, and your sun sign is the role that you're provided. So you're the leading character of this play, and the role that you were given, Romeo, Juliet, whatever, that is your sun sign. So that was something interesting. And another one came up with something like the initial broad strokes of a painting. So on the canvas, the first several broad strokes, that's the sun sign. It doesn't make up the complete picture. Those broad strokes are not the full painting. The painting is not done yet. So there's that. But it's the start. It's the starting point. So it's kind of like your ego, yes, not in an egotistical, like, oh, I'm an egomaniac, not like that. Just the ego itself in how you think of yourself. Kind of the essence, how you might answer, I am. So those kinds of things make up what the sun sign is. It's the outward identity, who we think we are, kind of the expression of the self is done through the sun sign. Yeah. So I changed the lighting a little bit, so hopefully I don't have those halos going all over the place. And I just recorded this, so that's super cool too. Okay. We are on to the moon sign. The moon sign, that is your emotional self. That's your emotional energy, your emotional habits, your reactions to things. Those are going to come from your moon. Your sense of comfort, your sense of security is going to come from your moon sign. There are, some people actually, if they're more emotionally driven, they will feel more in tune with their moon sign. So, if you've kind of always felt like your sun sign's like, that doesn't really sound like me. Like, I don't really, it doesn't make sense. Take a look at your moon sign and see what the traits of that sign are. Because it could be that you're just more of an emotional creature than ego-based creature. And again, I don't mean that in a negative sense. We have to start somewhere, right? It's just the broad strokes on the canvas. But with this one, yeah, if you are emotionally driven, you're going to identify more with your moon sign. And I think there are a lot of people that feel that way. For others, they, might not show that side of themselves to anyone but those that are closest to them. So those that are kind of, and just not emotionally driven, those, they might save that side of themselves, their inner self, to show in front of those that are closest to them. So it's also the place that you're kind of like your did I say this? Your deepest self, your most vulnerable. But what's interesting too is that this will be affected by the house that it's in. So if your moon falls within, your first house or your fourth house or your fifth house or whatever house, it could come up in a different way and it could mean a different thing. So it's just kind of the sign that your emotions will be filtered through, if that makes sense. Let's see. And I don't know if at one point I said it in the cusp area. So within the cusp area that I was talking about, I need to clarify. I said degrees, I meant houses. So Venus and Mercury, from our perspective, they kind of orbit way quickly. But they're always, from our perspective, close to the sun. They are, of course, closer to the sun than we are. But we're just talking perspective, pie in the sky, what we can see, right? So Venus and Mercury will always be either in the same sign as the sun or within 2 houses on either side of the sun. Does that make sense? Hope it makes sense. Okay, so we'll move on to the rising and ascendant. And this one is more like the social personality. Like, let's say you go to a party or something, like this is like the mask that you put on, So it's that which you allow others to see of you. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're being fake or whatever. And you might not even realize that you have a mask. You could just see it as, another part of your personality. And really it is. I mean, the Sag, I keep saying Sag, it's because I am a Sag. Sun, moon, and rising are all facets of our personality, as are all of the other placements that we have, all of the other planets that we have. So this one's just the one that you can see from the outside, the social one. But this one, I think I have said this before. It's worth repeating because it's kind of confusing. This is the sign that was rising over the horizon the sign that the sun was in as it was rising over the eastern horizon at the time of your birth and as viewed from your place of birth. So we know the sun always rises in the east. Let me know if that doesn't happen, because I think we might be in trouble. Okay, but so again, that's the sign that the sun was in. I wrote this down so ridiculously. The sign that the sun was in when it was rising over the eastern horizon at the time of your birth and as viewed from your place of birth. So that generally will only stay the same for about an hour. That's why I said to try to get it within like an hour to a half hour, because it doesn't stay there very long. The moon, I did mention this with the sun. The sun stays in one sign for about 4 weeks. The moon stays in one sign for about 2 days. And then the rising sign, that is only good. Good's not the word to use. For about an hour. And there's actually a chart in this book. Oh shoot, I wish I had it ready. Why don't I have it ready? Of what that, let's see. Okay, the book I'm looking at right here. And like I said, don't let a book tell you what to do. Because I have this book and I have a lot of other books, and never have I once regretted buying any of my other astrology books. So this book lied. Where on earth? Okay, so I'm looking at a ton of moon tables right now. Just looks like a ton of letters and words. Oh, here it is. Perfect. Ascendant tables. Okay, so this book, excuse me, sorry. This book is assuming that we are on the, in North America, sorry. It's assuming that we're in North America. So it's got 30 degrees and 40 degrees. And you can see that it goes by month at the way top, time of day along the left axis, and then within the chart is where the sun was. So you can see it kind of goes this way. And that's how you find out from a book how or what your rising sign is. And these are available online as well. You can find them in the back of a lot of different astrology books, but you can also find them online. So that is another option, and I'll have to put that in the biblio that I make because I mentioned it when we were going over astro.com. Okay, so the next thing that is important about this rising and ascendant sign. Most people, it really depends on who you talk to. Some people will tell you that your sun and your rising are the most important. Other people will tell you that your moon sign is the most important. When you're reading horoscopes, they'll tell you to look at your sun or rising. So it's all very confusing. I don't know which one to trust, so can't tell you which one to trust. I would say whichever one feels. Actually, you know what? I take that back. I will tell you what to feel, what to think. I think you should go according to what feels correct for you. That's what you should go with. You don't have to choose either. I mean, if you're really into horoscopes and you like reading horoscopes because they're fun, then now you get to read 3, maybe, unless you have a double sign. a duplicate or a triplicity. I'm trying to find a... It's just so rude to use this book. Okay, so what I was going to say was that the other reason that the ascendant sign is so important is that it identifies all of your house placements, all of your houses, not your house placements. It sounds funny that way. So it determines your first house, which then will tell you what all of your other houses are. So that's significant because each house represents a different area of life. So while the first house is all about the ego, all about the self, just as we said the sun is, the second house is all about your material possessions, right? Your third house is all about communication. Your fourth house is all about family. Your fifth house is all about fun and children and love. The fun love, not like the lasting companionship. The sixth is the day-to-day. The seventh house rules companions, so it would be one-on-one relationships and generally more committed relationships. So that could be marriage, that could be a business partnership, that would be ruled by the seventh house. The eighth house is the house of transformation. That could be kind of deep, dark secrets. It's a transformative house. They sometimes call it sex, death, and taxes. That's traditionally ruled by Scorpio. The ninth house is traditionally ruled by Sagittarius, and that is all about spirituality and higher learning. So they generally say that Sagittarians, or just in the ninth house, it rules morality as well. So morality, philosophy, higher learning. The next house would be the 10th house, and that would be Capricorn's house, usually, traditionally. And that is the house of work. Work. So your career, what you do for work, how you do it, if you like it, if you don't like it, whatever. And then 11th house is Aquarius. That's all about your community, which makes sense because Aquarius is a humanitarian. So then the last house, the 12th house, is traditionally ruled by Pisces, and that one is all about sacrifice, kind of like what you would sacrifice. It's similar in some way to the house of transformation, but it doesn't necessarily rule death and that kind of thing. It's more like death and rebirth is the 8th house. The 12th house is more of like closing up the corner and kind of jump in post filming there. Just gonna say that the 12th house is usually like dreams, intuition, secrets, and the subconscious mind. So it's interesting because that'll tell you then which sign is in which house and how that might affect you, right? So, of course, all of these things, free will is 100% a thing. You absolutely have free will. Knowing that you have X, Y, Z in the 5th, 8th, and 7th house, it just could mean that you're more likely to experience this, or this. Or it could mean that if you experience something, this is maybe how you'll react. But nothing's set in stone. Stars don't really have power over you. I mean, okay, the moon has power over everybody. We know this because the oceans and the tides. And if you've ever worked in customer service, you know that the full moon brings out the wild ones. And that's actually when hospitals and policemen see the most amount of activity too, is the full moon. So, I mean, and that's just the moon. The moon is tiny compared to Sagittarius. Do you hear me? Oh my God, what a narcissist. I just keep saying Sagittarius. It's because it's right in front of me. I apologize. Anyway, I was saying that the moon does not compare in size. It does. I mean, like, you can compare them if you choose to Saturn or Jupiter or whatever. But yeah, I think that's about it. And what I wanted to show you was the books that I was using, of course. I told you, this one here. We do not have this at our library, but it is going to be part of the consortium, so you can find it from one of our member libraries. I am almost certain. Almost 100% certain. This one we do own. This one's got a little bit about astrology in it, but not that much. So if you're just kind of dipping your toe and you kind of want to look into other esoteric stuff, this could be that. Some people consider astrology a cult, which is interesting. I wouldn't. Esoteric, sure, but a cult, I don't know. So, okay, there's that one. I use that one very briefly. There's this one. This book is not, obviously I like it. I bought it, so I do like it. Llewellyn is great for a lot of things. They make calendars, a lot of different types of calendars too, and almanacs, which is really cool. So, would recommend. And then, if you were to get into some other stuff. So, as I keep saying, I'm a triple Sagittarius, but I also have 6 Capricorn placements. What this means is that I am very affected by Capricorn and its ruler, Saturn. So, that and the fact that I'm about to turn 30. I also would recommend this one. You go through your Saturn return around 30, 60, and 90. Minus 2 years. So it's like starts around 28 and then 58 and then 88. So this is good for that, but it's also just good for understanding Saturn in general. And I realized that the reason I like Astro.com so much is because Liz Green is one of the primary people who made it. So, okay. This may not apply to all of you, but if you really get into this, actually, I'll show you this one first. So, if you look into your nodes, so I said the nodes of the moon, that's your north node and south node. This is a great book for that. They say, I'm going to talk about it like it's mythology, right? So, they say that the nodes of the moon, they just switched a little bit ago and they'll be switching again soon, but they say that in your birth chart, your south node is what you have done or mastered already in other lifetimes or in other iterations of reality. And the north node is what you are meant to, they'll always be opposite each other. So like we saw on the chart, Taurus and Scorpio are opposite each other on the wheel. So if you have a Taurus north node, your south node is going to be Scorpio. So the north node then is the energy, the stuff, the traits that you are meant to master in this life. And I thought that was very interesting. So I went out and got this book and I read it and loved it. And I just tell everybody to read it. Okay. If you don't get into the nose like me, that's okay. But I have 2 yads in my chart, and that's actually a Hebrew word or letter, I think. I'm not Jewish, I'm sorry, but I believe it's a Jewish letter, but it's actually an aspect within a chart. It's a big triangle, but it's got to be a certain number of degrees from each other. So if you do your chart and you kind of look into it further and find that you do have a yad or yads in your chart, then this is the perfect book to look into. Of course, feel free to look online for other information. There's a lot of information out right now because astrology's, always getting more and more. It like goes in waves, in and out of popularity, right? Right now, it's quite popular. So there's a lot of stuff online that, unless the person is an astrologer, and can prove it, just take it with a grain of salt, Even what I'm saying, take it with a grain of salt. Just take everything with a grain of salt. Carry a gallon of salt with you at all times. And then you can just, grain of salt for everything. Okay? All right. So we've gone over our sun, moon, and rising signs, as well as the houses and some other things. If you find that you have any questions or are confused about something, feel free to reach out to me. You can reach me at, maybe I'll leave it down in the description box below. Morgan, nope, that's not the right one. msedano, SEDANO, at ITPLD.com. That's wrong too. It's not .com. It's .org. msedano at ITPLD.org. Okay? So if you liked this video, please feel free to let us know. You can give us a thumbs up. You can just share it. You can just send us an email, let us know that you liked it. I think that we will be putting out a survey at some point. I wish it were ready because I would put it here down below. But surveys so that, we can get a good grasp from you all what you like, what you dislike, what you'd like more of, all that stuff. All right. So thank you so much for joining me this evening, and I will see you guys around. Take care. Don't forget to subscribe, like and subscribe. Okay, bye.